You are listening to HOA Clapback. I learned what tow on site means in a snowstorm. I have video, and I have witnesses, so do not lie to me. That is what I said to Monica Parker, the Fines and Enforcement Coordinator for the Stonehaven Frost Winter Compliance Association, as she stood in my driveway pointing at my car like it was evidence of a crime. The tow operator stared at Karen, and she screamed that she was board leadership, and he needed to hook my car now because of a snow violation. Fresh snow was still falling. The plow had just come through 20 minutes ago, and Monica was holding a clipboard wrapped in a clear plastic sleeve like she was aboutating to serve me papers for murder. The tow guy, a heavy guy in a reflective vest, looked at me, then at Monica, then back at me. He said, "Lady, I need to see the actual authorization." Monica whipped around and jabbed her clipboard at him. She said, "I am calling management and I am going to be dramatic about it." She pulled out her phone and started dialing right there in the snow. I am a cybersecurity analyst. I save every email and timestamp. I already had my phone recording video from my coat pocket angled up at her face. The tow operator saw the red light, and he stepped back from the hook controls. Monica did not notice. She was too busy yelling into her phone. She said, "Yes, this is Monica Parker, Fines Coordinator. I have a winter emergency hazard violation at 1247 Frost Ridge Lane, and the homeowner is refusing compliance." The driver shook his head and said, "I am not hooking anything until I see signed authorization with a case number." Monica spun on him and said, "Go ahead and call whoever you want. I have a committee for that." I almost laughed. That line would come back to haunt her, but I did not know it yet. All I knew was that I had a client meeting across town in 2 hours, and the roads were already a mess. Let me back up just enough to make sense of this nightmare. Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Stonehaven Frost Winter Compliance Association. Yes, Florida. Yes, snow. A freak cold snap had dumped 6 inches of heavy wet snow across the northern edge of the county 2 days ago, and the HOA board treated it like the apocalypse. I moved here 8 months ago because the neighborhood was new construction, low crime, and quiet. I work remote as a cybersecurity analyst for a defense contractor, so I need reliable internet and no distractions. The HOA rules were thick, but I figured I could just follow them and be left alone. I was wrong. Monica Parker had been on my case since November. She walked the neighborhood every morning looking for violations. Trash cans visible after pickup time. Holiday lights up past the deadline. Cars parked facing the wrong direction. She loved fines. She bragged about collections at the monthly meetings. When the snow hit, she went into overdrive. The board passed an emergency winter safety resolution that gave Monica authority to issue immediate fines for snow and ice hazards without a hearing. The resolution was vague. It said homeowners must maintain clear walkways, driveways, and curb areas free of accumulation and slip hazards. No definition of what that meant. No grace period. Just Monica walking around with her clipboard and a clear plastic sleeve, writing violations. I cleared my driveway the morning after the storm. I shoveled the walkway. I salted the steps. But the HOA hired a plow service that kept pushing berms back into my driveway every time they made a pass. By the second morning, I had a 2-foot-high wall of compacted snow blocking my car. I cleared it again. Monica showed up that afternoon and said I had a salt stain on my driveway that violated appearance standards. She took photos. She said the stain was a chemical hazard and an eyesore. I said it was salt. She said it was a violation. She handed me a notice from her clipboard and walked away. The notice said I had 24 hours to remediate the appearance violation or face a $50 daily fine. I called the management company. They said Monica was within her authority under the emergency resolution. I asked what remediate meant. They said contact the fines coordinator for clarification. I called Monica. She did not answer. I left a message. She texted me back an hour later and said, pressure wash the stain or face escalation. I replied, it is 32 degrees outside, and pressure washing will create ice. She replied, not my problem. Compliance is required. I swallowed my anger because I knew the moment to use it was coming. I documented everything. I took photos of the salt stain. I took photos of the plow berms. I took screenshots of the emergency resolution and the violation notice. I looked up the county code for winter maintenance. Nothing in the code mentioned appearance standards for salt. The county actually recommended salt for safety. I took screenshots of that too. Then I went to a hardware store and bought a small bucket and a salt scoop to keep my steps clear, because I knew Monica would be back. She came back the next morning with the tow truck. That is where we are now. Monica was still on the phone with management, pacing in a circle and leaving fresh tracks in the snow. The tow operator leaned against his truck and crossed his arms. I said, I have compliance documentation and I have witness statements. Monica ended her call and turned to face me. She said, you are in violation of the emergency winter safety resolution. Your vehicle is parked in an area affected by plow berm accumulation, creating a hazard. I looked at the snowbank. I said, the plow pushed that berm here. I cleared it twice. Monica pulled a laminated sheet from her clipboard and held it up. She said, Rule 12.6. All driveways must remain fully accessible for emergency vehicle passage during declared winter emergency periods. You are blocking access. I said, my driveway is private property. She said, not during an emergency. The association has authority. I said, show me the signed authorization for the tow. She did not have it. She had a blank tow request form clipped to her board, but no case number, no signature, no approval stamp. The tow operator saw it and he said, I am out. He started retracting the hook. Monica screamed. She actually screamed. She said, you cannot leave. I am board leadership. He said, call me when you have the paperwork. He climbed into the cab and drove off. Monica stood there shaking, staring at me like I had just committed treason. Then she said, you are going to regret this. You have no idea what I can do. I said, try me. She turned and walked to her car, a white SUV parked across the street, and she drove away fast enough that her tires spun on the ice. I went inside and called my ally. His name was Ray, and he worked at the tow yard the HOA contracted with. I had met him 2 weeks ago when Monica tried to tow my car over a guest parking violation that turned out to be a typo on the notice. Ray had quietly admitted the HOA paperwork was sloppy. He said Monica submitted requests without proper authorization half the time, and the yard was getting tired of the liability. I asked him if he could pull the request Monica filed this morning. He said he would check. 10 minutes later, he texted me a photo. The request form had my address and my plate number, but the violation field was blank, and the signature line had Monica's initials instead of a manager's signature. Ray said, this would not hold up if you disputed it. I saved the photo. I had a bigger problem. My client meeting was in 90 minutes. The roads were still bad. I needed to leave in 30 minutes to make it on time. I tried to start my car. Dead battery. The cold had killed it overnight. I called a mobile jump service. They said they were backed up and it would be at least 2 hours. I called the client and pushed the meeting back an hour. They were not happy. I went back inside and started looking for a rental car. Every place was booked. The storm had wiped out availability. I was stuck. I texted my boss and explained the situation. He said, "Handle it. Do not miss the meeting. This client is worth 6 figures." I felt the pressure tightening around my chest. Then my gate access stopped working. I live in a gated section of the neighborhood. I tried to use my keypad code to open the exit gate. Error. I tried again. Error. I called the management company. They said my access had been suspended pending resolution of the outstanding winter safety violation. I said, "What outstanding violation?" They said, "Fines coordinator filed an escalation this morning. Your account is frozen until you pay the fine and remediation fee." I said, "How much?" They said, $250. I said, "For what?" They said, "Salt stain remediation and emergency berm removal." I said, "I did not agree to that." They said, "The fines coordinator has authority under the emergency resolution." I said, "I am disputing this." They said, "You can file a dispute, but the freeze stays in place until the board reviews it. The next board meeting is in 2 weeks." I hung up and punched the steering wheel. I was trapped. I could not drive out. I could not work. I could not leave. Monica had turned a salt stain into a hostage situation. I called Ray again. I said, "She froze my gate access." He said, "That is not legal." I said, "Tell that to the management company." He said, "Listen, I know a guy who does third-party compliance inspections for HOAs. He is expensive, but he is fast and his reports hold up in court. If you can prove the violation is bogus, the management company will fold." I said, "How fast?" He said he can be there this afternoon if you pay the rush fee. I said, "Do it." The inspector arrived at 3. His name was Dan. He was a retired county code enforcement officer with a thick binder of Florida statutes and a camera with a timestamp function. I walked him through everything. I showed him the salt stain. He measured it, 6 inches by 10 inches. He said, "This is normal residential salt application, no code violation." He took photos. I showed him the plow berms. He measured those too. He said the HOA contractor is creating the accumulation, not you. He took more photos. I showed him the emergency resolution. He read it and laughed. He said, "This is not enforceable. It conflicts with county code. Homeowners are not responsible for plow contractor errors." He wrote it all up in a report and emailed it to me on the spot. He said, "Send this to the management company with a demand letter. If they do not reverse the freeze and refund the fines within 48 hours, file a complaint with the State Division of Condominiums and HOAs." I paid him $300 and felt like I had just bought a weapon. I sent the report to the management company at 4. I copied Monica. I copied the HOA board president. I wrote a short email that said, "Attached is a third-party compliance inspection report proving no violation occurred. I demand immediate reversal of the gate access freeze, refund of all fines, and written confirmation that no further action will be taken. Failure to comply within 48 hours will result in a formal complaint to the state." I hit send. Then I waited. Monica called me 20 minutes later. She was furious. She said, "You do not have the authority to hire an outside inspector." I said, "I do." She said, "That report is biased." I said, "It cites county code." She said, "The board does not recognize third-party reports." I said, "The state does." She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "You are making this worse for yourself. I am filing an amenities lockout. You will not be able to use the pool, the clubhouse, or the mailroom until this is resolved." I said, "Go ahead. I will add it to the complaint." She hung up. The amenities lockout hit my account that night. I got an automated email. It said my amenities access had been suspended due to unresolved safety violations. I forwarded the email to my attorney. Yes, I had an attorney. I kept one on retainer because I had dealt with bad landlords before, and I learned the hard way that you need a lawyer before you need a lawyer. He read everything and called me the next morning. He said, "This is retaliation. The HOA is going to lose. File the state complaint now and send them a demand letter from me. They will fold." I said, "What if they do not?" He said, "Then we sue and you get attorney fees plus damages." He drafted the demand letter. It was 2 pages of legal language that basically said, "Stop or pay." I sent it to the management company at noon. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss the next wild HOA showdown. The management company responded 2 hours later. They said they were reviewing the matter and would have a response within 5 business days. My attorney said, "Not good enough." He sent a follow-up that said, "You have 48 hours or we file." I got my gate access back the next morning. No explanation. Just an automated email that said my access had been restored. The fines were still on my account. I called the management company. They said the board was reviewing the third-party report and would issue a decision at the next meeting. I said, "That is 2 weeks away." They said, "That is the process." I said, "Your process is illegal retaliation." They said, "We are following the governing documents." I hung up and called my attorney. He said, "We are filing." But I was not done. I had one more card to play. I had been collecting screenshots of the HOA group chat for weeks. Monica ran a private text group for board members and certain homeowners she trusted. I was not in it, but Ray was. He lived in the neighborhood. Monica had added him months ago because she thought he would help her enforce parking rules. He had been forwarding me screenshots ever since Monica started targeting me. The screenshots showed Monica coordinating with 2 other board members to fast-track violations against me without proper notice. They showed her bragging about freezing my gate access. They showed her saying she was going to make an example out of me so other homeowners would not fight back. The screenshots were evidence of intent. They proved the violation was pretextual and the retaliation was planned. I had not used them yet because I wanted to save them for the right moment. The right moment came 3 days later. Monica filed an attempt to file a lien packet with a bogus ledger and mystery line items. The lien packet showed up in my mailbox on a Saturday morning. It was a thick envelope with a return address from a law firm I had never heard of. Inside was a notice of intent to file a lien against my property for unpaid fines and fees totaling $1,200. The ledger had line items for salt stain remediation, emergency berm removal, gate access suspension administrative fee, amenities lockout administrative fee, violation notice processing fee, and legal review fee. None of it was itemized. None of it had dates. It was pure fiction. I took photos of every page. Then I called my attorney. He said, "This is fraud. We are filing a counterclaim and demanding an emergency hearing. Do you have proof the charges are false?" I said, "I have a third-party inspection report, email records and text message screenshots showing intent." He said, "Send me everything." I sent him the screenshots. He read them and called me back 10 minutes later. He said, "This is smoking gun evidence. They coordinated to fabricate charges. We are going to destroy them." He filed the counterclaim that afternoon. He also filed a motion for an emergency hearing to remove the lien threat and impose sanctions on Monica and the board. The hearing was set for the following Wednesday at the county courthouse. Monica and the board president were ordered to appear. My attorney said, "Bring all your evidence." Printed copies, organized, tabbed. I spent the weekend preparing. I printed the inspection report. I printed the email chain. I printed the group chat screenshots with highlights. I printed the bogus lien packet. I put it all in a binder with color-coded tabs. I felt like I was going to war. Wednesday morning, I drove to the courthouse. The roads were clear now. The snow was mostly melted. It was 45 degrees and sunny. I met my attorney in the lobby. He was wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase. He said, "Ready?" I said, "Yes." We walked into the courtroom. Monica was already there. She was sitting at the defendant table with the board president, a tired-looking man in his 60s named Ed. Monica was wearing the same red-belted wool coat. She had her clipboard on the table. She looked calm. Ed looked nervous. The management company sent a representative, a woman in a gray blazer who sat behind them and did not make eye contact with anyone. The judge walked in. We stood. The hearing started. My attorney went first. He laid out the timeline. He showed the third-party inspection report. He showed the email records proving I'd complied with every request. He showed the gate access freeze and the amenities lockout. He showed the bogus lien packet. Then he dropped the screenshots. He said, "Your Honor, these text messages show the defendant coordinated with other board members to fabricate violations and retaliate against my client for disputing the initial fine. This is bad faith enforcement and it violates Florida HOA statutes." He handed copies to the judge and to Monica's side. Monica went pale. Ed stared at the pages like they were written in another language. The management company rep stood up and whispered something to Ed. He shook his head. The judge read the screenshots. She took her time. No one spoke. Finally, she looked up and said, "Miss Parker, did you send these messages?" Monica hesitated. She said, "Those messages are taken out of context." The judge said, "I am asking if you sent them." Monica said yes, but they were private communications within a board leadership group. The judge said, "That does not matter. These messages show intent to retaliate. That is a violation of state law." She turned to Ed. She said, "Mr. Shaw, as board president, did you approve these actions?" Ed said, "I was not aware of the full situation." The judge said, "You are listed in these messages." Ed did not answer. The judge said, "I am issuing an order to remove the lien threat immediately. I am also ordering the HOA to refund all fines and fees paid by the plaintiff and to issue a written apology. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the State Division for investigation. Miss Parker, you are prohibited from filing any further violations against this homeowner without written approval from the full board. Do you understand?" Monica said yes. Her voice was barely a whisper. The hearing ended. We walked out. Monica and Ed did not look at me. The management company rep followed them and they had a heated conversation in the hallway. I could hear Monica saying, "I was following the resolution." Ed was shaking his head. My attorney said, "You won." I said, "What happens now?" He said, "The state will investigate. If they find a pattern of bad faith enforcement, the board could face fines and Monica could be removed. You will get your refunds and the lien threat is gone." I said, "What about the screenshots?" He said, "Those are evidence now. They are part of the public record. Anyone can request them." I smiled. I went home and waited. The refund hit my account 2 days later. All of it. The salt stain fine, the berm removal fee, the administrative fees, everything. I got a letter from the management company that said, "The Stonehaven Frost Winter Compliance Association regrets the error in enforcement actions taken against your property. All fines and fees have been refunded. Your account is clear." It was not an apology, but it was close enough. I forwarded the letter to Ray. He replied, "Nice work." I heard Monica is losing her mind. I said, "Good." He said, "There is more." The tow yard dropped the HOA contract. They said the liability is too high. The HOA is scrambling to find a new vendor and no one wants to work with them because word got out that Monica was ordering staged snow photos to justify violations. I said, "Staged photos?" He said, "Yeah." She hired a landscaping guy to pile snow in front of certain driveways so she could take violation photos. The guy got caught, and he talked. Now the vendors are blacklisting the association. That was the moment I knew I had won. Monica had not just lost the fight with me. She had poisoned the HOA relationship with every contractor in the area. The board had to scramble for new vendors during the next storm, and it cost them triple. But I was not there to see it, because I moved out 2 months later. I had enough. I sold the house and relocated to a neighborhood with no HOA. Before I left, I went to one last board meeting. I wanted to see Monica one more time. She was sitting at the board table, looking small and defeated. Ed was running the meeting. He said, "We need to discuss the winter emergency resolution. Several homeowners have raised concerns about enforcement standards." I waited. One of the homeowners stood up. He said, "I move that the HOA votes to require actual evidence before fines." Another homeowner said, "I second." Ed said, "All in favor?" Almost everyone raised their hands. Ed said, "Motion passes." He looked at Monica. He said, "Miss Parker, do you have anything to add?" She did not answer. She just sat there. Another homeowner said, "I have a question." Karen tried to storm out, and someone asks for her motion on record. Monica stood up fast. Her chair scraped on the floor. She said, "I have nothing to say." A homeowner in the back said, "Wait, you filed a motion last month to expand enforcement authority. Do you want to withdraw that or put it on record?" Monica froze. She looked around the room. Everyone was staring at her. She said, "I withdraw it." She grabbed her clipboard and walked out. I never saw her again. The state investigation wrapped up 4 months after I moved. Ray texted me the results. Monica was removed from the board and banned from holding any HOA leadership position in Florida for 5 years. The board was fined $10,000 for bad faith enforcement and failure to follow proper procedures. Ed resigned. The management company dropped the HOA as a client. Stonehaven Frost had to hire a new management firm and rewrite the governing documents under state supervision. The winter emergency resolution was voided. Ray said the neighborhood was chaos for months, but eventually things settled down. He said property values dropped because of the bad press, and several homeowners sold and left. He said he was thinking about leaving too. I told him he should. He said he would think about it. I learned a lot from that fight. I learned that HOAs operate in a legal gray area where enforcement is often arbitrary and retaliatory. I learned that documentation is everything. I learned that most HOA board members do not actually know the law, and they rely on fear and intimidation to get compliance. I learned that a single bad actor with a clipboard and a power trip can make your life hell if you let them. But I also learned that you can fight back. You can win. It just takes patience, proof, and the willingness to escalate when they push you too far. Monica pushed me too far. She tried to trap me, frame me, and bleed me dry over a salt stain. She coordinated retaliation. She filed false charges. She crossed every line. And in the end, a third-party compliance report that clears the narrator completely and a screenshot of the HOA group chat coordinating retaliation brought her down. Karen's credibility collapses in front of witnesses. The HOA votes to require actual evidence before fines. That is how it ended. That is how it should have ended from the start. I still think about Monica sometimes. I wonder if she learned anything. I wonder if she feels any regret. I doubt it. People like her do not change. They just find new targets. But at least I made it harder for her. At least I left a record. At least the next person who fights back will have proof that it can be done. That is worth something. That is worth the stress and the money and the lost time. That is worth the fight. I hope she thinks about me too. I hope every time she sees a salt stain or a snowplow or a clipboard wrapped in a clear plastic sleeve, she remembers the cybersecurity analyst who refused to back down. I hope it keeps her up at night. I hope it eats at her. I hope she knows that she lost. Not just the hearing, not just the board seat, but the power, the control, the fear, all of it. Gone. Because I had video, because I had witnesses, because I had proof, and because I was willing to use it. That is the lesson, that is the ending. That is the truth. Do not let them win. Do not let them bully you. Do not let them take your money and your dignity without a fight. Fight back. Document everything. Get proof. Get allies. Get a lawyer if you have to. And when the moment comes, when they push you too far, when they cross the line and give you the opening you need, hit them with everything you have. Hit them with the truth. Hit them with the evidence. Hit them with the law. And watch them fall. That is what I did. That is what worked. That is what I am telling you now. You can win. You just have to be ready to fight. And you have to be ready to finish it. I finished it. I won. And I walked away free. That is the story. That is the whole story. That is the truth. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next HOA story.